Hamilton's brutal slam on the W14. The 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton has voiced his frustration at being ignored by his Silver Arrows team after a shocking start to the new season at the Bahrain Grand Prix. It was a disastrous opening weekend for Hamilton, who saw Max Verstappen cruise to victory in the unstoppable Red Bull, while he finished over 50 seconds behind his old rival in 5th place. After the race, Hamilton sent some brutal comments towards the team, which were to be expected after a performance like that. But before we get into that, let's see why did Mercedes perform so badly at the Bahrain Grand Prix. After a crazy 2022 season, Mercedes didn't back down and kept their signature zero sidepod design. However, they ended the Sakhir weekend in 4th place behind Red Bull, Ferrari and Aston Martin. Mercedes had a bad day, but it was overshadowed by Aston Martin's unexpected success. The troubled 2022 vehicle has shown Mercedes just how far it has fallen in the last year. In FP2, Hamilton finished 8th, behind the likes of those driving for Aston Martin, Red Bull Racing, Ferrari, Haas and Alpine. As a result, George Russell had to settle for 13th place instead of the top 10. Hamilton was most concerned about his long-run speed, which lagged behind both Alonso and Verstappen, despite being only 0.63 seconds behind the leader, which was about a tenth faster than in FP2 in Bahrain last year. The Silver Arrows may be bouncing less than they did last year, but the W14 speed and stability issues persist. For the Bahrain Grand Prix, Lewis Hamilton and George Russell disappointed their fans by finishing 5th and 7th respectively, leading many to believe Mercedes had fabricated their preseason times. The W14 appeared unable of competing with Red Bull, Ferrari, or even Aston Martin. Mercedes supporters are dissatisfied with the team's lack of growth since the 2022 season. They are now accusing the team's technical director, Mike Elliott. As technical director, Elliott would have had to decide whether to continue with the zero sidepod design this season, despite Red Bull and Ferrari indicating that it was not the best way to go with the new rules. After the Bahrain Grand Prix, Mercedes supporters have sent out hundreds of tweets demanding Elliott's resignation due to the team's poor performance this season. And now not only the fans, but Mercedes are under pressure from their star driver as well. Mercedes, according to Lewis Hamilton, didn't listen to his reservations about the team's new W14 vehicle. Mercedes had huge performance issues in 2022, with their W13 vehicle battling notably with porpoising, and off-season changes do not appear to have materially improved the car's competitiveness. Hamilton was rather encouraging in that message, but speaking in a post-race interview with Rosanna Tennant on BBC's Checkered Flag podcast, Hamilton took a more critical stance with his team. Having raced in every Formula One season since 2007, Hamilton says his vast experience means he knows what a car needs. However, he says that the Mercedes team has not followed through on his guidance when creating the W14 and believes that cannot be allowed to slide. "Last year I told them the issues that are with the car," said Hamilton. "Like, I've driven so many cars in my life, so I know what a car needs. I know what a car doesn't need. And I think it's really about accountability. It's about owning up and saying, yeah, you know what? We didn't listen to you. It's not where it needs to be and we've got to work. We've got to look into the balance through the corners, look at all the weak points and just huddle up as a team. That's what we do. We're still multi-world champions, you know. It's just they haven't got it right this time. They didn't get it right last year, but that doesn't mean we can't get it right moving forwards." Hamilton and former McLaren teammate Fernando Alonso provided one of the highlights of the Bahrain Grand Prix when they fought head-to-head in the race, with Hamilton eventually losing. He also stated that the present position with the W14 reminds him of the vehicles he had at McLaren when some of them were not quite powerful enough to put him in the fight. But now faced with this situation at Mercedes, he says as a collective they are going to have to turn it around. "I enjoyed that I managed to have a couple of battles," said the 7-time world champion, "and it was close, but not quite there. And I've had many cars like this, particularly back in the McLaren days, and I don't know when or how we're going to do it in terms of turning it around, but it's going to have to happen." He feels that the Mercedes team has to work hard on the car. Even the team has conceded on the basis of failure. They have attempted to expose the weaknesses in the car, while also devising remedies to assist them quickly build up the speed on the circuit. Mercedes elected to continue with their design after struggling with it last season. Now that the main driver is experiencing difficulties, the team principal has suggested that the entire vehicle be replaced. Hamilton believes in the team's ability to close the gap on not just runaway leaders Red Bull, but also Ferrari and Aston Martin, something they were unable to achieve in Bahrain. On the other side, Fernando Alonso, the team's second primary driver, has called his former teammate Lewis Hamilton the best driver in Formula One right now, but thinks he wouldn't be winning if it weren't for Mercedes. Considering the current setbacks at Mercedes, Hamilton believes the team must work together to turn things around. He has recently underlined his devotion to Mercedes-Benz. Even after the setback in preseason testing, he's willing to stay with them and make all of the necessary improvements to the model to get back on track. In recent years, a lot of staff have left Mercedes, moving to other teams. Most recently, James Vowles departed from the team and moved to Williams as team principal. However, James Allison is reportedly returning to the team after leaving in 2021. With Allison returning, things may begin to look more positive for the Brackley-based team. Reports also suggest that Allison has had input into the upgrades Mercedes will bring to Imola. It is still early days in the season, and despite Hamilton having enjoyed the couple of battles during the Grand Prix, the team are aware they are not quite there yet. In the standings coming into the weekend, Mercedes was in second place, but it was unclear how much behind Red Bull they were. That is crystal evident now that the race has been completed. In addition, we are aware that Mercedes is abandoning its existing design, since it does not appear to be as quick as the designs of other automobiles. It is essential to keep in mind that the W14 is not bouncing, rather it just does not move very quickly. So, what does Mercedes have planned for the future? It is expected that the W14 would appear substantially different from how it did previously by the time the event takes place in Imola. On the other hand, Mercedes will be around 18 months behind its competitors in terms of the development time spent on its concept. Hamilton's comments also come as his contract talks have stalled with the team, ahead of potentially extending his £40 million a year deal beyond the end of this current campaign, where his hopes of battling for a record 8th World Championship already look slim. However, relations between the driver and team are still largely positive, and both would remain keen on at least extending the partnership into 2024. Mercedes is having problems, so it's clear that Hamilton's career is at a turning point. Lewis could handle one bad year after all his success, and 2022 was his answer to Michael Schumacher's 2005. It was his way of getting back at him for being so good all the time, but unlike Michael, he didn't win the title last year. At age 38, another year with few options may be too much to handle. Hamilton's questions about the design of Mercedes cars bordered on rebellion in Bahrain, and Toto Wolff's admission after the first qualifying session of the season that they had made a mistake went against what his technical team said on Friday, when they were still confident in the zero long-term pod's potential. Although Hamilton has stated that he will continue to race in Formula One for as long as it takes him to win his 8th title, or as he stated in the most recent season of Drive to Survive, to reclaim the championship that was taken from me, there may come a time when he is forced to face the reality of the situation. Because Verstappen and Red Bull are almost certain to win more races for the duration of the current rules cycle, and because Mercedes' George Russell is becoming a more serious threat, it is possible that a significant decision will need to be made in the near future. What do you think? Is Hamilton right to attack Mercedes after such a bad race? Let us know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below, and see you next time.